become as wide as a country road. John Denver was RCA's shining star for a quarter of a century. Then, they abandoned him, as if he were unimportant. His escorts had previously revealed his aggressive tendencies and sprees with a chainsaw. He had lost his pilot's license due to his drinking as well. Though he was no longer able to fly legally by 1997, he persisted in taking to the skies nevertheless. He was killed because of a severe fault in the experimental plane. Something sinister was uncovered when the puzzle pieces were eventually put together by the detectives. Crash avoidance was possible. Everyone saw the warning signs, yet no one heeded them. Paid attention. You won't believe what transpired that day. On December 31st, 1943, John Denver came into this world as Henry John Dutzkondorf Jr. He came from a long line of pilots in Roswell, New Mexico, where he was born. The captain's father, Henry Dutch. 3 speed records in the B-58 Hustler bomber were set by the renowned Air Force pilot Dutzkondorf, Sr. After his heroic actions, Dutch was honored with an induction into the Air Force Hall of Fame. Life was challenging for young John, though, uprooting one's life to serve in the military. At all times, never settling down for more than a few years at a time, he bounced around between Texas, Alabama, and Arizona. It seemed like the moment he felt at home, he had to be on the move again. Because of this, he began to feel isolated and unwanted. He never got over the feeling of never having a real place to call home. John received a unique present from his grandma in Tucson, Arizona, when he was 11 years old. This particular Gibson guitar had been in the family for over 40 years, having been manufactured in 1910. As a young man who, feeling dislocated for the majority of his life, the guitar became his anchor. He found a voice through music that he couldn't find the words for. Its soothing string music soothed him. Additionally, he started harmonizing with the Tucson, Arizona Boys Chorus when he was a member of that group, and give a live performance. He felt a sense of belonging that school could never provide, being part of this famous group. He began performing folk music at local venues while still a high school student. More and more, music was becoming into a serious activity. His method of understanding his life's meaning. Their connection was frequently fraught due to his father's strictness. Dutch thought his son will be the best at everything. John was kinder and more interested in music composition, but they did have a common love of flying. At the time, they ultimately became close after John became a pilot. Although it was perilous, flying together allowed them to bond. Even more so following his own tragic plane disaster in 1997, that risk would continue to plague John in his later years. But that bond endured, and it eventually found its way into his music through Independence and Boundless Sky. John went on to study architecture at Texas Tech University after finishing high school. But sketching plans wasn't what he was passionate about. He dropped out of college and headed for Los Angeles because, deep down, he wanted to be a musician. He changed his last name about this time. The mountains and rivers of Colorado served as inspiration. Therefore, he chose Denver as the capital. A new beginning was the feeling. A major break came his way in 1965. He was selected as the lead singer for the Chad Mitchell Trio among 250 auditionees. His major break came at this concert. It exposed him to new people all around the nation and provided him with the experience he needed to develop. He contributed to 3 albums throughout his 2 years with the band. He performs, "Become more self-assured in my singing." He wrote his own tunes in his spare time. The tour was challenging, but John relished every moment. His voice was emerging, albeit slowly. "Leaving on a Jet Plane" was a hit song he wrote around this period. A Billboard Hot 100 smash by 1969, the song was covered by Peter, Paul, and Mary in 1967. All of a sudden, his words were being sung by everyone. His songwriting was important, even though he hadn't yet achieved solo stardom. John turned away from the Mitchell Trio as their performance concluded. He had already begun his own ascent to the top of the music charts. He was having a prolific hit-making career by the early 1970s. Going from a member of a group to a solo artist with so ease was unusual. John, however, appeared to have no difficulty at all. After the 1971 release of Poems, Prayers, and Promises, John Denver's career really took off. Even though it eventually became a beloved anthem, the standout song, Take Me Home, Country Roads, was almost never released. There were some audio issues with the first pressings, and for an instant it seemed like the song might not work. The new manager of the Denver Nuggets, Jerry Winrobe, had other intentions. He began aggressively promoting the song on Denver, Colorado, radio stations. Although it was released on April 12, 1971, it was not immediately popular. It reached a peak of number by August 28, 2 numbers in Billboard's Hot 100. It became a gold record the very next month after selling over 1 million copies. It continued to be successful throughout the years. Its sales surpassed 1 million by 2017. 5 million copies digitally in the United States. As a result of its impact, West Virginia made it their official state anthem in 2014. Denver released Rocky Mountain High in 1972 as a follow-up. His first album to enter the U.S. Top 10, it was released in September of that year and was his 6th overall. The peak was at number 3 spots on the Billboard 200. In 1973, the title song became a popular Denver song, making it to the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. Among outdoor enthusiasts, it remains a beloved favorite, having peaked at number 29 on the year-end chart. Shot near Aspen Slaughterhouse Falls, the cover. The setting is Colorado, which adds a personal touch. Rocky Mountain High was chosen as one of Colorado's 2 official state songs in 2007, which was a decade and a half later. John Denver had his 2 most successful years in 1974 and 1975. He managed to rack up 4 number 1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100 in only 18 months. March 1974 had Sunshine on My Shoulders reach number 1, while July 1974 saw Annie's Song do the same. In May 1975, Thank God I'm a Country Boy was the number 1 song, while in September 1975, I'm Sorry was the number 2 song. Each facet of his talent was on display in these songs. Some were mild-mannered and positivity, as if it were a sunny day and here I am. Others, such as Thank God I'm a Country Boy, were bursting with enthusiasm. Annie wrote a timeless wedding song for his wife in only 10 minutes. By this point, Denver had conquered the airwaves, appearing on television and radio in the homes of millions. While they were at the top of their game, Denver put out 3 albums that all reached number 1. For RCA Records, John Denver's Greatest Hits album of 1973 was the best-selling album of all time, surpassing even Elvis Presley's record. In 1974, what followed was Back Home Again, which achieved triple platinum status in the United States. The 1975 album went on to achieve double platinum sales. It was clear from these 3 albums that Denver was a genuine superstar. Denver had written almost 300 songs by the time he retired. He penned almost 200 of them by himself. 12 gold were his total earnings, and album certification with 4 platinum discs. Global sales exceeded 33 million pieces. As a result, he became one of the 1970s most popular singer-songwriters. John Denver's unexpected and fruitful foray into Hollywood was rather remarkable. He had a starring role in 1977's opposite George Burns, the legendary comedian, in the smash hit film Oh God. His genuine charisma and easygoing charisma won over spectators, despite Denver's lack of acting experience. The film, directed by Carl Reiner and adapted from a book by Avery Corman, followed the life of an ordinary grocery store manager who was selected by God to share a message from on high. It was easy to put yourself in Denver's shoes since his performance was so authentic. The picture was so successful that it garnered an Academy Award nomination for screenplay and grossed more than $51 million in the United States. Despite his omission from the sequels, Denver proved in his debut role that he could transcend singing and solidified his status as a brilliant musician who seamlessly transitioned into acting. Similarly, Denver popularized a style that swept the 70s. He was instantly recognizable by his signature long blonde hair, wire-rimmed spectacles, and embroidered Western shirts. Anna Zapp, whom Denver met at an Aspen art event, designed these tees. Her brightly colored, handcrafted creations complemented his calm, humble demeanor. Willie Nelson and Bonnie R.A. were among the other famous people that wore her tees later on. It was simple to recognize Denver by his friendly, familiar face. In contrast to the more strident sounds of its contemporaries, it came to symbolize the genuine, honest essence of folk and country music. Plus, he won over foreign audiences despite skepticism from certain commentators. Jerry, his boss. Denver needed to reach out to foreign fans directly, according to Weinrob. In spite of skepticism, Weinrob proceeded to schedule a number of specials for British television. Winner said that since critics wouldn't help Denver become famous, the city would instead appeal to the masses. This is the strategy. Finished without a hitch. Denver won over British audiences and fans all over Europe with his approachable personality and crystal-clear voice. The specials helped make Denver famous all over the world and demonstrated the power of television as a medium for introducing new musicians to an international audience. Just as strong were Denver's links to Colorado. He fell in love with the scenery and way of life in Aspen after relocating there. His 1974 appointment as poet laureate was a state honor for Colorado. His song, Rocky Mountain High, which he released 2 years ago, evoked the tranquility of a mountain lakeside forest setting. After years of use as a de facto anthem, the song was officially recognized in 2007 as one of Colorado's 2 official state songs. People in Denver felt a genuine connection to the region. In 2014, his song, Take Me Home, Country Roads, was even chosen as one of the official songs in West Virginia by lawmakers. That his music evoked strong mental images of many locations in the United States. During the 70s and 80s, Denver was also a household name on television. An Evening with John Denver, his 1975 special, was even nominated for a Primetime Emmy. He was now considered to be on par with the likes of the highly esteemed artists of the era. Denver was included in a plethora of other television programs, performing with pals while singing his hits and sharing tales. Listeners in living rooms across the globe were treated to his music on these shows. Every performance had an intimate, sincere quality which elevated him. Widely regarded as one of the era's most beloved performers. As an artist, John Denver was multi-talented. Before the United States Senate in 1985, he stood. The album's parents wanted a warning label because they felt the music was too sexually explicit. Regardless on whether Denver was well known for his soothing melodies, he spoke up. He informed them that Rocky Mountain High, one of his songs, had been restricted once due to the assumption that it discussed narcotics. No, that was false. In his defense of free speech, Denver maintained composure and authority. In the minds of many, someone like he would have been in favor of the warning labels, but he chose not to. The argument was altered irrevocably at that point. Even now, the influence is felt in the music industry. Denver made history that year when she toured the Soviet Union, breaking a 10-year streak for American artists. Tense times were the Cold War. The two nations were at odds with one another. Denver chose to take a fresh approach. Across the USSR, he performed 11 gigs. There was more to the tour than just amusement. The connection it provided. Cultures. Everyone in Tallinn, Leningrad, and Moscow welcomed him with open arms. His message of unity was clear even to those who were unable to comprehend him verbally. As he sang, Denver conveyed both their plight and his own aspirations. His new single, Let Us, was born out of that experience. Where did it all start? With the decision to choose peace over violence. Live in the USSR, his renowned live CD was compiled from recordings made during this tour. In 1987, following the Chernobyl incident, Denver returned to the Soviet Union. Nearly 92,000 individuals had to flee their houses because of the nuclear catastrophe. In the thousands were potentially sick. While in Moscow, Denver performed at a benefit performance. Ticket sales alone brought in almost $140,000 for the production. More poured in via audio recordings. Politics had no place that evening. It centered on human kindness and empathy. People in the Soviet Union felt seen. Denver proved that a lone guitar player could make a significant impact. Denver did a concert tour of China in 1992. Years later, being alone, the Chinese were interested in learning more about him. In places like parks and schools, songs like Country Roads were already being performed. He was asked to tour numerous cities in China by the government. They went so far as to agree to air his show to an audience of over 2 billion people. A few people proposed using locations such as the Temple of Heaven or the Forbidden City to host the performance. The young people of China greeted him with heroism. Denver had made an impression on Deng Xiaoping and other leaders during his state visit to Washington, D.C. many years ago. Denver's tour catapulted him to the ranks of the most appreciated Western performers in China during that period. As his career progressed, Denver shifted his focus to assisting others. His greatest hits album, Homegrown, came out in the 90s. Homeless folks were helped with every cent. Concurrently, he helped establish the World Hunger Project. The President's World Without Hunger Award was bestowed upon him by that organization. Environmental causes also included Denver. For the purpose of reforesting, he established the WinStar Foundation and initiated Planted 2000. He devoted just as much time to his charitable work, similar to his music in many ways. Still, Denver had a troubled private life. It all started with a dream when he proposed to Annie Martel. The couple adopted 2 kids at the same time. Even in only 10 minutes, Denver composed Annie's song. Nevertheless, given their problems multiplied as their fame rose. Annie frequently felt engulfed by his specter. They finalized their divorce in the early 1980s. The aftermath was anarchy. Denver, who is usually so reserved in public, lost control when he was alone. He reportedly lost his temper. And very unexpected, their painful and heartbreaking 1982 divorce was finalized. After Annie chopped down a few of Denver's beloved oak trees at their alpine abode, he eventually lost it. With a chainsaw in tow he arrived. He chopped their stuff to bits instead of screaming. He went so far as to cut their bed in half. It was a somber sign of a marriage in disarray. Witnesses and friends of the singer found it hard to believe this was the same person. It was Annie who had originally filed for a divorce in 1982. Denver's pristine reputation was shattered when papers exposed a history of abuse. Her allies confirmed her account. His bad anger was talked about even by his former manager. After their divorce, Annie tried to remain out of the spotlight, but it didn't help. a large number of folks had formerly looked up to Denver started to perceive him differently. It was in 1985 at Sydney's Seabell Townhouse that John Denver and Cassandra Delaney, an Australian singer and actor, first crossed paths. He couldn't help but be captivated by her performance as she took the stage at the hotel bar. They fell in love quickly, and grandiose wedding atop Aspen Mountain took place by August 1988. With loved ones by their sides, the setting was picture perfect. Many thought it was all part of a fairy tale. However, there were weaknesses right from the start. Being with a famous man put a lot of strain on Cassandra, she said afterwards. The age difference between John and other people was 20 years. His moods might fluctuate drastically, and fame seemed to follow him wherever he went. In private, things were already more strained than they appeared to be to the outside world. Their little girl, Jessie, was born in May of 1989. Because of a sickness he experienced as a kid, John had always believed he couldn't have children. A miracle and a shock, the pregnancy came as a shock. The birth of Jessie sparked speculation, because John had long maintained that he was sterile. Questions about whether or not they had utilized in vitro fertilization arose from some. Following Jess's birth, John's possessiveness grew. He seemed envious and emotionally aloof from Cassandra. Their delicate equilibrium started to crumble. According to Cassandra, Australian women's often and presented a bleak image. In her opinion, John lacked genuine pals. He instilled fear among the staff. Executive assistants would sob and resign. His seemingly kind demeanor was all an act. Between sets he was. Even with his closest friends and family, he may be abrupt, hostile, and violent. She opened up about decades of mental anguish. John drank excessively, became violent with her, and sought to micromanage her life. She hoped to influence him by remaining silent for an extended period. However, that was all. Completed the task. Everyone was feeling the strain. Their separation occurred in 1991, and by 1993, their divorce had been finalized. The battle in court was fierce. For $3, John went after Cassandra in court. $3 million, and that she was being ridiculous. To him, for Jess's custody, Cassandra battled. According to John's memoirs, she had degraded him while they were across the valley. They were wounded and furious because of the war. From that point on, John changed irrevocably. Take Me Home, his autobiography, came out in 1994. His impeccable reputation was broken. His history of substance abuse includes cannabis, LSD, and cocaine, he acknowledged. Fans were taken aback by these confessions. From the start, they viewed him as a tender, natural voice. The shadowy aspects of his existence were now revealed to them. He also detailed his infidelity in his writings. Annie Martel's song was inspired by his infidelity in his first marriage. In his bio, he claimed to have been was more physically aggressive than he should have been, and he admitted that his second marriage had also been wrecked by his violent outbursts. Particularly shocking was the account of how he sliced their bed in half with a chainsaw. John Denver was formerly a much-adored singer-songwriter in the United States. His career in the 1970s achieved chart success and amassed a legion of devoted followers thanks to his tender vocals, honest songwriting, and acoustic style. He had 25 albums released by RCA Records, with 13 going gold and 8 going platinum. RCA's best-selling LP of all time was his greatest hits album. But by the middle of the 1980s, a shift had begun. Synths and drum machines were the new musical frontier of the 80s. His folk country sound seemed out of step with the ubiquitous MTV-driven mainstream. General Electric wanted to minimize expenditures and concentrate on more modern performers after purchasing RCA in 1986. They let him go despite his lengthy tenure and success with RCA. Shock swept over Denver. He was certain that he would be offered a new contract after finishing his last album with them, One World. But RCA thought they could make more money elsewhere, so he left. Claimed that, after reaping so much financial benefit from him for so long, they had begun to take him for granted. Since he had nowhere else to go, he had no choice but to release his subsequent albums on his own WinStar label. That even a famous person may fall behind when trends and priorities shift was a sobering warning. Meanwhile, Denver was dealing with other issues. He now had a newfound love for flying. He flew gliders, Lear jets, multi-engine planes, and more than 2,700 hours of flight time throughout his career. But eventually, his personal problems caught up with him. Alongside him, 2 separate DUI arrests occurred in the 1990s involving Denver. The FAA takes note because pilots are required to show they are physically and mentally able to fly by presenting a current medical certificate. Following his second DUI conviction, his medical certificate, his pilot's license would have been meaningless without it. He failed to fulfill the requirement to demonstrate that he had overcome his drinking issue in order to get it reinstated. He had lost even the ability to fly, which had been his life's greatest delight. His treatment of the FAA's orders was even more concerning. Certified letters requesting the return of his medical certificate were sent to him, but he chose to either disregard them or return them unread. This continued for months, with Denver continuing to fly despite his no longer being medically certified. His refusal to accept the letters allowed him to remain within the bounds of legality. He had to accept the FAA's notification before they could finish revoking his license. He could theoretically continue flying, but that has nothing to do with his fitness level. It was due to a flaw in the system that needed his help to fix. In March 1997, that gap was eventually sealed. Denver authorized the FAA to formally ground him after he signed for one of their certified letters. Every flight was considered illegal after that. He would have to demonstrate his sobriety and finish all the criteria he had neglected for his status to be restored. Years. Not doing that was Denver's decision. But it didn't stop him from taking to the sky nevertheless. Near Terry, California, on October 12, 1997, he conducted practice takeoffs and landings with his newly acquired Long Easy experimental aircraft. It was a little plane that had undergone significant changes. Denver barely had it for a day before taking off solo after spending only around half an hour with a Czech pilot. It was difficult to fly the plane due to all of the customizations. Valves for fuel selection, for instance, had to go 45 degrees back in his seat, which made him squint and reach over his left shoulder. It could not be bent or turned easily. To move correctly, it required pliers as well. The gasoline gauges were also behind him, which was worst. That meant he couldn't, without having to stoop and use a portable mirror to read them. The gauges continued to be ambiguous, providing him with only imprecise, nonlinear estimations of the remaining fuel. The 26-gallon tank had fewer than 5 gallons remaining when the gauge indicated 1/4 full. During takeoff and landing practice that morning at Terry Peninsula Airport, Denver depleted the left tank. As the fuel ran out, witnesses heard the engine stutter and then go silent. In order to change to the right tank, Denver turned around. That required him to use pliers while reaching blindly behind him to rotate the knob. He pressed the right rudder pedal by accident while doing so. The lengthy Easy quickly descended into the Pacific Ocean after a sudden nosedive. Denver met a quick and tragic end. Mystery hunters from the National Transportation Safety Board concluded that Denver's lack of knowledge with the aircraft was a significant factor, and that he had initially inadequate fuel, approximately 3 gallons in one tank and 6 in the other. The risky design changes that made fuel switching in flight nearly impossible were also mentioned. He was a seasoned pilot, but he hadn't trained for this particular plane. No ambiguity in the NTSB report. We could have prevented this accident. Denver may have avoided the accident entirely with better preparation, more frequent fueling, or an easier-to-manage fuel system. That took place. A sad finish might result from careless actions and omitted facts. His last flight was a tragic example of this.